Hey, and welcome to my January wrap up. If you saw the video that I did halfway through the month up here, where I talked about the books that I finished reading, I'm not going to talk about those until we get to stats. I'm just going to skip over all of those. Okay, since last time we went from lowest rated to highest rated, I'm going to go highest rated to lowest rated. Again, I did not have a 5 star. I told y'all at the beginning, I'm trying to be much more like discerning with the way that I am rating books this time. And so my lowest is a 3 and my highest is a 4.5. So we're going to start this time with the 4.5 stars. Actually, we're going to start with the unrated. First of all, I did not rate this book. This is called Safety on Maracay or Marin Maracay. There's a whole saga about this and the reason that I couldn't read it, but that I attempted. And I learned a lot about Kiribati, and maybe that was the whole point of everything. But this one did not get a rating because I didn't feel like that was fair for me to rate a book. Couldn't technically read. Also, I didn't rate Seeing the Body by Rachel Eliza Griffiths. This is a book of poetry about dealing with the death of her mother and the grief that she goes through. It was fantastic and powerful, but I don't know. Like, I'm not good at rating that kind of nonfiction, like biographical information or biographical things like that. The poetry in itself I thought was fantastic. So maybe I could just do a rating based on the poetry. I would probably give it 4 or 4.5 stars. I just don't know. So anyway, that one I haven't given a rating to as of right now. So now let's move to the 4.5 stars. The first two are Nightfall and Lullaby, which is part of Daniel Barnett's series. And these are nearly perfect to me. I work my way up to a 5, or I did the first time I read this series, and I'm assuming that's what's going to happen again. Once I start to really fall in love with the characters, they're easily 5 star reads for me after that. But both of these I gave 4.5. I know that my favorite book is coming up, and I'm sure it'll get 5 stars. I tabbed it up the first time I read it, so I'm excited to do that again. But anyway, that does not matter. This is the two 4.5 stars. If you haven't heard me talk about this series, I'm sorry. Where have you been? But I'm just kidding. It's about the world going dark, and we follow John and Maria as they're predominantly our main characters as they try to navigate a world that now has no sun. So the first one is Nightfall, the second one is Lullaby, and right now there are 6 books in the series. 5 of them are relatively short like this, and then book number 6 is a lot longer. And then he is working that's the first arc of the story, and then he's working on the second arc right now. So, I read books 1 and 2 in January. I'm reading 3 and 4 in February. So if anybody wants to join me, it's not too late to catch up. 1, 2, and 3, books 1, 2, and 3 are on audio. You can grab those as well. Okay. I'm going to stop harping on this series. It's extremely horror series. So if you're not looking for horror, don't do this. Okay, the other two 4.5 stars I do not have with me. One of them is Onyx Storm. I listened to it on audio. I feel like the reason I enjoyed this so much was because I watched a recap of the first 2 books, like prepping for the third book, and it was so nice. I knew who everybody was. I remembered all the storylines that were important. And so I felt like I went into book 3 like ready to go. And this book was fast paced, it was constantly moving. If you are trying to get into fantasy and you don't read much fantasy, this is a very good intro to fantasy. I think she does a really good job of writing in an accessible way. I think the characters are easy to understand. They're the only thing that I do not like about these books is the cliffhangers that she has to put at the end, which that's not true. I didn't like book 2 much at all, but that was because it had some communication issues between the main characters, and I cannot stand that usually in a book. So that was hard for me. But Onyx Storm did not have those issues. We had a lot more open relationships, a lot more open communication, is what I mean, in the relationships. People were saying things that they wanted to say. There was a few more like I'm keeping secrets, but it was understandable this time. And there was still the whole like, you can't keep secrets. Like, we need to be together in a team. We're together. We need to communicate. So I thought it was very, very good. The other 4.5 or the last, no, I have 2 more. I had 5 4.5s. Did I say that? I thought I said 4. Anyway, the fourth one was Malice by John Gwynne. I thought this was so fun to follow all of these characters. And at first, it was daunting. And I was like, how am I going to keep everybody straight? But really, there's only about 4 main characters. And once you establish who they are and what they're doing in the world, it was really good. It reminded me a lot of Game of Thrones. And I know that you shouldn't compare things to Game of Thrones. I said that it was a less deadly Game of Thrones. Like your favorite characters seem to be pretty safe right now, and that's not the case in the Game of Thrones. I've only read the first book in Game of Thrones, but the atmosphere that was created in that book, the world building that was created, I felt like John Gwynne did a really good job of doing something similar in this book. Also, the way we jump from character to character in each chapter is the same in both books. So those kinds of comparisons is what I can say. And that has something to do with dragons and it's, medieval fantasy. So in those ways, it's similar as well. It's about a kingdom. It's about the ruler of the kingdom and what's going on with them and everybody surrounding them. So there are a lot of similarities. Don't think that if you loved Game of Thrones, you're going to jump into Malice and be like, oh, this is great. But if you're looking for something similar, maybe just a little toned down version, Malice is it. And then finally, I gave Chew Bad Apples, the graphic novel, 4.5 stars. I think this might be my favorite one of them so far. And maybe it was because I read it on my computer. So I was able to see the panels much better. Like I didn't have to spend a lot of time looking around to try to figure out everything that was happening because it was larger on my thing than usually I have to read it on my phone or on the Kindle my iPad. And so this being on my screen was much easier for me to read. And so I'm going to try to read the rest of them that way. I don't think that was it because there is also a storyline, but we got to find out more about the people who have special abilities, and it all has to do with eating something. When they eat that thing, they get different impressions. So we've known from the beginning that Tony, our main character, can see the past of whatever object he bites. And now, but then we found out that his twin sister, whose name is Antonia or something like that, Antoinelle, I don't remember her name, but they call her Tony as well. So literally twins, both called Tony Chew. So dumb. But his sister, she can see the future of any object that she bites or person, by the way. They definitely go around biting people and eating chunks out of people. Anyway, there are other people who, when they taste somebody or something, they gain their powers. So they're calling him a vampire and he's running around. There's just so many different things that you can do. There are so many different abilities that these people have when they bite things. And we learned about a lot more of those in this one. We also got a couple of side characters. Tony, our main character, Tony, has a daughter that showed up a few books back, and we get to see more about her and kind of what she's doing on the side and how she's connected to Tony and how their relationship is not great. But anyway, all of that, really good. I really liked it. Now, for my 4 stars, I had 2 4 stars. The first one is The Family Chow. I feel like I talked about this already. This one I read like right in the middle of the month. So I'm not sure if I talked about it in that video or not, but we're going to talk about it really quickly here. This family, the Chow family, owns a restaurant and they have 3 sons who the oldest son left, came back to help run the restaurant. And now he wants to stay and run the restaurant. The second son is like the businessman trying to make all the money, trying to stay away as much as possible. And the youngest son is off at college and he comes home for Christmas break and lots of things happen. And so we have all 3 of the brothers back at the house. Their parents have split up. Their mom is living in like a monk monastery type place, but it's only for women and it's only like it's in the city. It's just like an escape for women to go. Anyway, their dad is awful. Like he's a horrible person. But this is just a family saga story. I mean, it's called The Family Child. So if you like that family dynamic of all the different pieces and people in a family figuring things out, this might be a really good book for you to read. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. But it's not normally the type of book that I go for, but I drew it to read for something else and I really liked it. So my other 4-star was Out of the Gate by Elsie Silver. This was the prequel novella to a series that I wanted to read of hers, and I saw that this was there. It's only available on ebook, and it's just over 100 pages, which is probably why it didn't get higher than a 4-star. I couldn't find, there wasn't anything wrong with it. We had a little bit of the I'm going to push you away for your own good, which I hate that trope. I hate that plot device, whatever you want to call it. I hate it. Like that's being selfish still. Like you're still being selfish. You're still anyway, not being considerate of someone else, even though you act like you're being super considerate by sending her away, usually her, so that you don't get the backlash of whatever's happening to me. I understand it if you're saying I'm being hunted and you need to be protected and I'm going to put you in this place. But not, I'm going to be super mean to you and tell you that I don't like you and I don't want to be around you just so you'll get upset and leave me. Like hurting someone else to help them, never okay. So I do not like that. There was a little bit of that in there that kind of threw me off, but otherwise, I thought it was really good. Okay, 3.5 stars for 3 different books, and I own 2 of them. So first, we're going to go with Amari and the Despicable Wonders. I gave it 3.5 stars. I felt like this was not very much happened. Amari makes really bad decisions all of a sudden. Like maybe she did in the first 2 books, and I just thought she was so cute that I didn't pay attention to it. But she is told that bad things will happen if she does a certain thing, and then she just does that thing. And she has friends around her who are supposed to be helping her / protecting her, and she sneaks away from them every opportunity that she gets. And then someone always has to end up rescuing her. Like somebody always has to step in and save her from a situation that she shouldn't have been in to begin with, except that she was making dumb choices. And the other people around her don't make these dumb choices. So I need her to do better. I really liked the premise of this book. The actual Despicable Wonders is very cool. I like the world that we've built or that BB Alston has built. I didn't have anything to do with it. But I just need Amari to be better in the next books. So I'm definitely going to keep going. I'm sad about how this went. Also, 3.5 stars to The Immortals. This was the last book I read of the month, and there was a few things. Number 1, it was incredibly disgusting. Also, trigger warnings. There is rape on page from the point of view of the rapist. Like, no, thank you. That is not a trigger for me, but I don't want to read about it. Like, no, I do not want to read about that. Anyway, we are left on a really good note at the end of this, and I am really looking forward to where we're going in the future and how this is all going to play out, at least with Taylor and her fiance and her potential new friend, this woman that she met in this book. I'm really hoping that this woman continues throughout the rest of the series, but I don't know if she is or not. Anyway, this one I read, it was very dark. 7 teenagers are killed on Halloween, and she has to try to solve who did it. So this one, 3.5 stars. I want it to get better and not have any more rape, but we'll just see. Okay, that's all the 3.5 stars. I had 2 that were 3 stars, and both of them were little novellas. And I'm just wondering, they're romance novellas. I'm just wondering if it's me that doesn't like that kind of format. So the first one was The King's Spinster Bride by Ruby Dixon. This one is about a girl she's like 15 years old at the beginning. And her dad is the king of this area. And they have these people who are attacking them, and they're calling them cyclopses, even though they're just humans who have chosen to remove one of their eyes. They're not actual cyclopses. So what happens is her dad and the cyclopses, their two nations, have gotten into a fight. And the little cyclops boy, who is like 9, has been abducted and brought into her kingdom. And so she's very protective of him. She's like, y'all are not hurting this baby. Well, her dad ends up being defeated, and the Cyclops king kind of exiles her, and the boy protects her because he's like, she tried to protect me, so I'm not going to have her killed. So instead of being killed, she's just sent away or sent into seclusion, whatever. Now fast forward to like 15 years later. She's a spinster now because she's 30 and hasn't been married. And the boy, is now the king of his land or the leader of his group. And he comes and proposes that they strike a deal because her land is starting to rebel against him. And he's like, if we get married, then your people will fall in line. And plus, I've been wanting to marry you since I was 9 years old. And anyway, it was just real fast, insta love. She just said, okay, sure, I'll marry you. After she seemed to be really content where she was. But then he came in and he was hot, and she was like, okay, I'll marry you. All right. And then she eventually falls in love because he's in love at the very beginning, like from the get-go. So he falls first, definitely is a trope in this one, if that's something that you like. I would have been interested in this had it been a longer novel. I think I would have liked it more. And then finally, Dark Sins of Avalon got 3 stars. This is one of those books that I got on a Stuff Your Kindle day, and I saw the cover and I was like, oh, I like it. And it's Avalon. So I was like, this is definitely going to be King Arthur, right? And it is. And I didn't read the little line at the bottom of this that says it is a reverse harem. So the good thing about this is that there was not any like insta love immediately falling into bed with everybody, but it is eventually going to lead to this woman with Sir Lancelot, King Arthur, and Merlin. And I'm just like, that's a little bit much for me to do. So if that sounds interesting to you because you like King Arthur stuff and you like reverse harems, then there you go. Dark Sins of Avalon. I thought it was really well done for a little intro into what's happening with them. And it didn't fall into the insta love, insta lust, let's just immediately take our clothes off. Like it didn't fall into that, which I thought was really good. So 3 stars. That's it. 27 books for the month of January. And so now let's look at the stats because I know that's why you're all here. Okay, here are the beginning of the stats at least. January, 27 books, 6,954 pages, 191.43 hours listened, and an average rating of 3.92. We're in the 3s. I want that average rating to get up. Anyway, the majority of the books I read were romance and horror. I think that's so funny, and followed quickly by fantasy. I have a few of these that are going to be being removed just because I'm not going to be tracking those things. But for now, that's staying right there. Then we have the audience, mostly adult books. 21 were adult books, 3 middle grade, 3 young adult. The novels, 15 were novels, 5 novellas, 2 collections. Those were poetry and short stories. Graphic novels, 4, and 1 just actual short story. So I had 1 collection of short stories and then 1 short story. Over here for the publication year, I just think this is fun to see what all years I read books out of. The most was 2020. I read 22% of my books were from 2020, and then 2023 and 2022 were the next ones in line. So I did read some 2024, but only 2 books from 2024. All right. Then we have the I did the format. We had how I read them. So I read 17 of them on audio, 6 ebooks, and 4 paperbacks. So that's not a normal thing for me. I normally do not have 10 books that I read ebook and paperback. So that is very different from what I normally do. Then we talk about series. 19 of them were part of a series that I'm still reading. 7 of them were standalones, and then 1 completed a series. So if I go over here, it tells me more about that. So 7 Brides for 7 Alien Brothers was the series that I completed. I read book 1 of 7 different series. So I started 7 series. Wow. And then, like you saw over there, I had 7 standalones. Now, let's look at the maps. I'm going to scroll up. We're going to look at the U.S. map first. I mean, the most I read from any one state was 2 books. California and Massachusetts both had 2 books. And then all the rest of these only had 1. Texas, Utah, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, New York, and Maine. And the only one that was because I drew that book to read for the state was Virginia. And my next one's going to be Ohio, which I don't know, is somewhere in here. Let me see. That's Illinois. That's Ohio. So I really hope I'm correct. But I know that right there at the bottom of this Great Lake is Chicago. So maybe this is Illinois and this is Ohio. What is this then? Wow. Okay. I need to just stop trying to guess. Indiana, Illinois. Or Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Oh my gosh, they're right here somewhere. This is Michigan. Let's talk about things I know. Okay, so that is what the U.S. looks like. Let's look at the world. Wow, y'all. I mean, Canada is representing with their 1 book, as is France and England. And then Kiribati is in here somewhere, but it is not on this map. It's over here in the world somewhere, but it clearly is not represented on this map, because there is nothing that says Kiribati when I click on any of it. So, but it's in here as a 1 country somewhere. So that's fine. That's the one that I drew. And I still read 3 other books that were outside the U.S. that I didn't draw. So next time is going to be Nepal in February. So that'll be somewhere in here. Let's see. That's India. I think Nepal is right here. Let me stop guessing. I need to play global some more, clearly, but that's it. That is all the stats, as well as everything I read the second half of January. I didn't intend to read 27 books this month, but I did. And I'm not mad at it. I still didn't feel like I was pushing myself. It felt, I think because they were a lot smaller. I mean, I'm still less than 7,000 pages in 27 books. So I should see what that is. Okay, so that means each book averaged 258 pages. So that's not long. That's not even an average book length. I think 300 pages is an average book length now. So, I mean, I read a couple of books that were over 500, but I don't think any of the rest of the books I read were over 500. And then, I had some that were only 40 pages. So I'm happy with how the month went, and I'm excited about what's going to be happening in February. Let me know how your January reading went down below. If you have a new favorite book that you read, did you read any 5 stars? Because I did not, and I'm in search of a 5-star read. So you can let me know down below any 5 stars that you recommend or any books that you recommend, especially if you're a channel member. Recommend for me so I can put it in my jar over here. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.